Welcome and thank you for tuning in to our webinar today, Understanding Generations, how to improve your communication skills in order to increase productivity and sales. A little bit about us, BlackRain Partners. We bring the rain that keeps you in the black. How do we do that? We focus on people. This is a little bit about our services: employee and leadership development, executive and manager coaching, HR and corporate culture, increasing sales and revenue, and retreat facilitation. Today, we want you to be open to learning new ideas. The power of one idea can change your world. This is one of our favorite quotes from Stephen Covey. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. And hopefully this is what you will achieve today after going through our webinar about generations. Many of the things you're going to hear today may be a reminder of something you've read somewhere else or heard somewhere else. You will definitely get new information, and it'll be a combination of both. Our expectations today are to go over some research and, of course, go over reality and how to meet the needs of all customers, internal customers and external customers. So let's jump right in. Age diversity. Age diversity is differences that are due to generation or a year range in which the person grew up. Please, please, please avoid stereotyping based off of what you will learn today. Remember that age diversity and generations are not a sole factor in supervising, working alongside your team, or when working with parents or customers. Generations overview. Quick snapshot here. Today we have a short time period, otherwise you'd be here for about 4 hours. But there are 5 generations active in the economy: silent generation, baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, also known as Gen Y, and Gen Z. Today we are going to go over 3 specific generations which are most active in the workforce: baby boomers, Gen X, and millennials. Jumping right in, if you don't get anything out of this picture, out of this seminar, this is the picture to take home. The oldest generation in the workforce, or also in the economy, are called seniors, depending on where you find the information. And they like to write, so an actual written letter, not an email. Baby boomers like to talk on the phone. Gen X likes to use email, and Gen Y likes to text me. I always say Gen Z, which is the youngest generation, is probably going to be talking through osmosis. Baby boomers. They are born in 1943 through 1960, age 57 to 74. Want to just say a little caveat right here is that there is no government entity that says, okay, this is the generation. Somebody made it up and a lot of other people went with it. So depending on what resource you look at on the internet, in a magazine, in an article, the age range might vary, but it's typically about 20 years in difference. Baby boomers, they prefer to communicate via a phone or a live conversation. Why is that? Just think about it. It's because the phone became common in houses, in individual houses, during the baby boomer time. So that's the resource that was innovative to them, and that's why they prefer to use the phone. They also typically really enjoy in-person meetings versus Skype or webinars like we're doing right now. Also in the workplace, they were the first generation to use first names at work. What does that mean? Previously, the seniors would use titles such as Mr. John Smith or Dr. John Smith. And baby boomers really became workaholics and were working so much that they started just saying, can we just call you John? And it stuck. Baby boomers also expect respectful communication. So even though they did become a little more casual, they didn't become that casual. So you really need to remember that if your employees are baby boomers, or more importantly, or equally important, I should say, are your customers. If you can hire a baby boomer, it is one of the best things you can do. They are experienced, dedicated, and appreciative. The tips to manage baby boomers are don't ignore them. I hear all too often employers saying, oh, well, they're going to retire soon, so let them just do what they're doing and stick them in the corner. That's just a complete waste of time and wisdom. You need to make them mentors and capture that wisdom that is going to retire in a few years. Don't give up on them. If you have new technology, new systems, provide the training. They may be resistant to change just because there hasn't been as much change, especially in technology, in their early career than there is now. So you're going to need to deal with the resistance to change by openly discussing things over and over again and getting their feedback. The most important thing I could say if you're hiring or working with a baby boomer is respect their experience. They truly have been there and done that and can give you a wealth of information that you may be missing to make a decision. Insight on baby boomers. They, of course, are retiring. Many already have, depending on what their age is and also what their financial situation is. Many are also becoming volunteers. So even though you may not see them in your workforce, you are going to be seeing them when you're working with nonprofits. And a lot of us shop at nonprofits, maybe at, thrift stores and things like that. So you're still going to be working with them. Baby boomers, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, they are workaholics and they expect everyone to be. What does that mean? That means if your office hours are 9 to 5 and a baby boomer customer comes in, or your boss or your employee comes in and needs something at 5 minutes before 5, they expect you to stay and stay late happily to get that done because they are workaholics. They also have the time to shop around and save money, get what they want. This is very, very important. If your customer base is baby boomers and they are retired or partially retired, they're not going to just settle for mediocre product or service because they can shop around. And above all, they are very experienced. Do not try to pull the wool over their eyes. And I would say this for any generation, in fact. Jumping into Generation X, again, depending on where you find the resource, they are born from 1961 to 1981, approximately 36 to 56 years old. Generation X, communication. They like to use emails and websites as the primary source. Why is that? Because emails and websites came about as common resources to use for communication. Text message is in the second choice, and then actual live phone calls. Now, everybody's different. A lot of people adapt to the needs of their workplace or where they're shopping or, where they're going on vacation. So don't use this as, oh, Gen X only uses email, because you just need to ask the person, how would you like to communicate? And they can tell you. Gen X is much more informal than seniors and baby boomers, and they use humor often. They are very, very, very big on relationship building and socializing at work, whether with the customers or with the employees. Very blunt and direct and factual, and they are known as latchkey kids. If you don't know what a latchkey kid is, it is unfortunately products of divorce or single parent homes, or maybe dual homes. And the kids were sent to school in the morning with a key in their backpack. Often they had to leave the house by themselves, get their breakfast, pack their backpack, all that stuff, lock the door, and then come home and unlock the door at the end of the day. And there was a note left on the counter with the Johnny do list or the Susie do list by mom or dad who were still at work. And they had to get this stuff done before mom and dad came home. So let's just say the list might say, okay, Johnny, you need to put your clothes away, change the cat litter box, and do your homework before I get home from work. If the mom or dad came home from work at 5 o'clock, when do you think this list would be done? Probably about 4:45. And so what you really need to get out of that is Gen X in the workplace is used to having a list of things to do and a deadline. They're not good at having somebody hang over their shoulder and saying, you need to get this done at 1, you need to get this done at 2. And you just say, give me the deadline and I'll get it done by the deadline and back off. So that kind of comes from the product of being latchkey kids. The other thing from being latchkey kids is there was not internet back then. And if something was broke, the Gen X learned how to fix it, whether that be with duct tape or hiding it or, calling a friend or running to the library and looking something up. They learned how to fix it on their own. There was no YouTube like there is now. Moving on to Gen X, if you're hiring individual talent that is a Gen Xer, they're very hardworking, responsible, and resourceful. Again, like I mentioned in the latchkey section, is they were left on their own a lot to just figure things out, and they excelled at that. Tips to manage Gen X. Treat them like peers, not subordinates. This is the group that started, not so much focusing on titles and didn't want to wait 10 years to advance in their career because baby boomers waited 10 years. Things were a lot more advanced in technology. They started the whole trend, if I can advance in 2 years, why do I have to wait 10? So keep that in mind, that this is Gen X to blame for that, not the millennials who seem to take the heat. They also want you to be very clear with expectations, meaning results, not hours worked. Speaking of hours worked, they would like you to get rid of silly rules. So if it's always been you have to work 9 to 5, they said, why? That doesn't make sense. I have a family. I want flexible work hours. Can we just tell me I need to work 40 hours and give me some parameters, and maybe I could come in earlier or stay late or work on the weekends? Gen X learned from the baby boomers who unfortunately did start getting divorced and maybe having second families, and both parents were in the workplace. The baby boomers told their Gen X kids when they were raising them, don't be a workaholic, although they wanted their employees to be workaholics. They didn't want their kids to be workaholics. And they said, don't do what I did. Please focus on your family. Make sure you go to Sally's recital. Make sure you go to Jimmy's soccer game. And so Gen X came back to the workplace and said, I need some flexibility. Ironically, on a side note, the baby boomer bosses then got mad about that. So it's kind of funny how that works out. Gen X also wants you as a manager to provide constructive feedback. So no more was once a year performance reviews going to work. They want more information more often, and they just want you to get to the point. And another thing is they really want to have fun in the workplace. So the huge concentration on employee baseball teams and bowling events and happy hours and Christmas parties and Thanksgiving events and things like that. They really wanted to be friends with whoever they worked with. Moving on is Generation X customers. Again, as we just mentioned, they started work-life balance. So as the customers, the Gen X are more flexible with your employee schedules, but they still want what they want. So if you're saying to your customer, oh, I'm sorry, so-and-so is not here, they left early to go see their kid's soccer game, the Gen X customer is going to understand, but they're only going to understand so much to a point because they still need their service or their product. Gen X customers enjoy giving back personally and corporately, and they want to know, what do you give back to? So whatever you're involved with as a company, say it loud and say it proud. Make sure it's on your website, on your marketing brochures, on your door. Talk about it, ask for donations, get the word out. They've really started the trend of, okay, we need to be more involved in our world, and it did start becoming more of a global world during Gen X's time. Finally, with Gen X as a customer, they want relationships. They will buy from friends. What does this mean? So Gen X, fortunately or unfortunately, was the cause of the giant business development budget. They're the folks that took their friends, i.e. their customers / clients, to baseball games, to fancy dinners, to football games, to concerts. And they made their prospects into their friends, and then their friends, who are their prospects, now became their customers and said, okay, I'm going to give you guys some rope because you're my friend, so if you screw up, I'm going to give you a chance, but there's always only going to be so many chances. So that's what we mean by saying they want relationships and they will buy from friends. Jumping into Gen Y, also known as the Millennials, and we're going to go pretty deep into the Millennials right now because they're often misunderstood. They are born from 1982 to 1998, age 19 to 35. Again, this is based on what resource you look at. I see a lot of dates, but they're about 20, 25 years apart for millennials. I want to note that I feel that the millennials are so different from any other generation, mainly because of the changes in technology, that at BlackRain, we kind of wish that there was millennials A, millennials B, millennials C, and then we could put them in a separate category. Because if you ask any millennial in their 30s, there's no way they identify with a 19, 20, 21-year-old millennial. And so they're so completely different. I think it's a disadvantage that we group them all into one group. So with that said, millennials in the workforce, millennials will comprise the majority of the workforce by 2025. And you can see this image here with the different generations. And in blue, it says builders. They have several different names too, but that's what we refer to as the seniors. You can barely even see the blue on the top of the head of 2015. You know, most of them are retired. Baby boomers in many of them are already retired or partially retired, especially the older baby boomers. 2020, there'll be baby boomers, Gen X, and Gen Y. Most of them will be, a good majority will be Gen Y, and then it just kind of keeps going up. We're not going to have time today to get into Generation Z, which is the youngest generation, but as you can see, and by 2040, it's going to be Gen Y and Gen Z mainly comprising the workforce. Depending on what industry you're in, you may already have Gen Z, you may have high schoolers or young college students who do work for you, so you may already be experiencing that. Millennials, there's a little story for you on millennials. They are the product of helicopter parents. So if you don't know what a helicopter parent is, just picture a helicopter hovering over somebody's shoulder. Helicopter parents are often very educated, and they wanted their children to be very educated. Many of the millennials' parents are either Gen X or maybe baby boomers who are younger and or on their second marriage. They wanted to give the child the best step up ahead of the competition. They overscheduled the kid's schedule. The kid would go from pre-daycare to Russian lessons to soccer to ballet, and so their schedules were packed every minute of the day. And another thing is, it was not really a safe world out there right now compared to when Gen X and even baby boomers were growing up. So the parents always had millennials in before school, daycare, so to speak, after school daycare, YMCA. They were never left alone to just roam through the neighborhood, roam through the woods, get on their bike and go across town, because it was deemed an unsafe world than in the past. The other, on the third bullet here, I find interesting is I'm a Gen X, and there's no way in heck my parents would have said to me, okay, hey, we're thinking of moving, I want your opinion. They would say, get in the car, we've already threw away half your stuff, let's go. That has completely changed with the millennials. The parents said, we want you to be part of the family decision making. And so sometimes the child was asked, where do you want to move? Is this going to affect your college or your high school or whatever it might be? So totally different than the past generations. And again, I just want to pause here for a second and say all millennials by what I'm saying, because I have met millennials that completely associate with baby boomer characteristics or Gen X or even Gen Z. So these are all very high level information that will help you understand a little bit about most millennials. Also, for being a product of helicopter parents, millennials were awarded for everything. Keep in mind, it wasn't their choice. The kid just wanted to go out and get dirty and play soccer, but then the soccer moms, and I joke by saying that, but the soccer moms said, okay, we got to give them an award. Everybody who played, whether they won or lost, got an award. It wasn't the millennials that started parents. Parents really focused on book smarts versus chores and being a kid. And so we have extremely smart, extremely educated millennials, the most educated generation ever in our world. And they're not always, good at maybe life skills or just being a kid. Again, it wasn't their choice. They were a kid and were doing what they were told. Managers of millennials now struggle. They must now be mentors, coaches, and sometimes life coaches, because the individual may not have had that experience growing up. So with that said, the top 4 employee motivators, if you're hiring a millennial or managing a millennial, is hours. If you recall, a few minutes ago, I said that, guess who started this? That was actually Gen X that started that. Millennials took it a step further, because many millennials did not have jobs, especially the older generation millennials. They were coming out of college. with a very expensive degree, maybe 2 degrees at a very young age, and there weren't that many jobs available. And so they may have pieced together jobs, a job, part-time job here, a contractor here, so another part-time job over here. And so they had to figure out their own schedule and at the same time make time for fun too, because if you're going to be broke, you might as well be having some fun. So keep that in mind, that they got used to setting their own hours. Not only that, is so much of the education today is online, even in high school. So you're asking these millennials to go to high school and college and take online courses that they can be doing at 2 a.m., they could be doing at 2 p.m., and they got this entire education and most of their life is online, and then you're asking them to come sit at a desk from 9 to 5. It just doesn't make sense. And I do have to say, I agree with them. It doesn't always make sense for all industries. Some industries and some jobs, it is what it is. And you need to be there when the customers want you to be there. The second thing that motivates millennials is leading edge. I said this in the beginning, talking to millennials, technology has changed so much in the past 20, 25, 30 years and continues to change every single day. Picture this, the first millennial, which is approximately 35 years old, had the first laptop ever. And now we have laptops on our wrists. What a change. No other generation has seen that amount of change in a 20, 30-year time period, never mind a 5-year time period. So technology and keeping up with technology, the employer making sure they have the best technology and then make sure there's always updates and changes as needed, that motivates them. They also are going to need the skill development with that. Just because they are a millennial doesn't mean they're a computer expert. They are going to need the training. You can't just throw things at them and say, oh, you're a millennial, figure it out, because nobody knows this technology except for the person who created it, who may or may not even be a millennial. The third motivator for millennial employees is instant contribution. They need to show that their work relates to the bottom line. Just as Gen X did not like the word junior or some form of seniority, they are not motivated by that. The best thing you can do is write a vision, mission, and value statements and show how every single job on the org chart, and if you don't have one, you'll need to get one, it contributes to the bottom line. Because if they don't think they're contributing to the bottom line and to the mission and vision of the company, they're not going to be motivated. The fourth motivator of millennials is loyalty. They are very, very loyal to those who are loyal to them. And I know people have the impression that millennials are not loyal and they're just going to get up and go. But think about it for a minute. They've seen their parents, they've seen their grandparents lose jobs at the drop of a hat. Usually because of what's going on in the country financially, up to and including 9/11 even, which caused a lot of job loss and unfortunately a downfall in the economy for a long time that we're still recovering from. Millennials want stability and they want fast growth. If you're not going to show them what their opportunities are and give them opportunities, somebody else will. I remember being at a conference and I had a woman business owner who was a baby boomer say, I'm just not going to hire millennials. And I said, well, that be, what I would then say to you is you can hire BlackRain and we can help you with your exit and succession planning, because your company's going to be going out of business, because eventually you're going to have to hire millennials, just like eventually you had to hire Gen X, and then the next thing is going to be Gen Z. So we started out this presentation by saying seek first to understand, then be understood. And this is so important with the millennials. They're looking for work-life balance just like Gen X was. They want you to know their goals and they want to know your goals, you as the boss and you as the business owner. If you have opportunities, spell it out. And I mean literally spell it out. Do not just say, oh, figure it out. And yeah, everybody here succeeds, go ask. They really need it spelled out. And they want to support your company goals and your vision. And if you don't know what that is, then they're not going to know what it is. So it's not something just to stick in a book and collect dust. They really, really want to know what the vision is and to help you get there so that they can get there as well. Millennials' employee values, they are very innovative, huge risk takers, and not afraid of mistakes. Why is that? Uh, they had a hard, many of them, not all of them, but many of them did have a hard time finding jobs. They've also are the most educated, as we mentioned, generation ever in the United States. So they know the information that they need. They may not actually have put it into practice in the business world. There's been so many resources available, including their parents' experience, that there's a little bit of a, protection because of the financial situations in the economy. Many millennials do have a backup plan, which is living with family members. And so you are allowed to take a little more risk when you're living with family members and you have a backup plan. The other thing is, in the millennial age of coming, being an entrepreneur, a 1099, starting a new business, quitting a business, has become acceptable to society. So they have that backup. I laugh because I'm a Gen X, and I think Gen X, especially older Gen X, and then baby boomers, we would drain our life savings before quitting a business, where millennials are like, oh no, this isn't working out, we're done here. And it's kind of a smart idea. They're also looking for sustainability and security. At this point, who isn't, right? I have bolded purpose. They want to know what the company's purpose is, what your purpose is, and they want you to know what their purpose is, and so that you're all on the same page. And if it's not in alignment, then maybe it's not going to work out. And wouldn't you want to know that in advance? They are very much into changing the world. Corporate social responsibility is very important to them, and this is as a customer as well. Already mentioned about being results oriented versus a time clock. If you're asking millennials to clock in and clock out, it's probably going to be very demotivating to them. They value lifestyle versus climbing the ladder, which is a huge difference from, say, baby boomers. And for millennials, diversity is the norm. When we're talking about things that are going on in the news, transgender rights, things like that, they're just looking at everybody else going, what is wrong with you? Like, diversity is the norm. So it's quite refreshing, to be honest, to me anyways. Millennials, their form of communication, I think we all know this. You've seen the picture down there. There's everybody taking a selfie. Very big on technology, text message, live video chat, Skype, all those things. Social media and images are very key to who they are. Message boards and online chats. They need less face-to-face time with their boss, meaning they don't need as much time to discuss a project, but don't steer this from saying, oh, they never have to have a meeting, because they do. I mean, you can't get to know people without meeting with them face-to-face, but they don't need every single thing to be in a face-to-face meeting, especially if they're working virtually or something like that. If you have any millennials that work for you, you already know this. They need ongoing feedback. And by ongoing feedback, I mean every single day, probably several times a day in the beginning. They are used to, from their helicopter parents, they are used to, getting feedback all the time. You're doing good. Here, you made a mistake. Let me help you with this. So it is a little more difficult to manage millennials time-wise than it was before. And they are also very informal in style and casual. And I want to just take a note there. It's not the millennials that made this acceptable. It was actually Gen X that started being business casual and moving to casual. And then millennials took the ball and ran with it, and we allowed it to happen. So if your business demands professional appearance, meaning, suit and tie, then you need to be very clear with that. Millennials are driven to please. They were raised that way. Their parents, were always giving them accolades. And so they kind of strive for that. Managers must now serve as a coach. And unfortunately, managers may not know how, because they didn't get trained to do that, or they just didn't know how, they didn't have to do it before. So it's not just about managing tasks. It's now about being a coach and a mentor. Managers must now be very, very, very clear in interviews of expectations, duties, work environment, hours, dress code, all of this stuff. Very clear. No assumptions should be made. Managers must have a training plan in place for the current job. So training is for the current job and development is for the future job. In the past, these were always like suggested, and as an HR professional, we would love to have these, but it didn't always happen. It is mandatory now. It is no longer optional. If you do not have a training plan and a development plan, you may hire a millennial, but you will not retain them for very long. And again, managers must now show opportunities to grow, literally show plans and designs. And if you don't know, ask the millennials, maybe they can help you. They're very, very educated. They may have taken a class on this that you have not. So make sure that you reach out to them and get their expertise. And finally, be extremely clear with job expectations, i.e. results, not the 9 to 5. These are the things you need to do every single day. And if it changes every day, maybe start the day off with a meeting. It could be a 10-minute meeting, or end the previous day with a meeting so they can get the ball rolling without having to run to your office in the morning. As customers, millennials are very mission oriented. Again, if you are giving back to the community, working with charities, say it loud, say it proud, they want to know. Social responsibility is a huge must for customers who are millennials. They want to know, what is their return on investment in buying from you? What are you giving back to that I can feel proud of buying for you? Because in this age, we can just buy something from another country. Why would they want to buy something from you and have to maybe physically go there and get it when they can just get it shipped overnight, or maybe even dropped off by a drone? They're very technology driven. So if you're selling services or products, they're going to go to the web, to an app, to their mobile device. Make sure that all of your devices and your sites and your apps work on all types of technology, or you may lose millennials. And most importantly, they want to know how, as a customer, can they give you feedback now? They're not going to complete a survey a month from now. They're not going to complete, something that you've mailed to them. They may not even check their mailbox once a month, because nowadays mailboxes, as they're building more and more homes, you have to physically drive somewhere to, might just be a block down the road, but to get your mail. So millennials need to get information to you now, using an app or some kind of feedback, not a month from now. To kind of wrap up here, generational aspirations. Again, we didn't really go over seniors or Gen Z for the lack of time, but seniors, their aspirations were home ownership. Baby boomers, their aspirations were job security. Gen X, it was a big focus on work-life balance. Gen Y, huge focus, which is millennials, freedom and flexibility. And Gen Z, the next generation that will be in the workforce, and some are in the workforce already, big focus on security and stability. I kind of hesitate when I talk about Gen Z, because they're like, 0 to 20 years old. So I'm like, when you did the survey on Gen Z, did you ask the 18-year-old or did you ask the 4-year-old? So I kind of take that with tongue in cheek, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Obviously, technology is going to be a huge part of Gen Z's life as well. Generational engagement. I just think this is so important. If you look at this Gallup survey, and I believe it's 2015 or 2014, so it's a little outdated. Hopefully a new one will be coming out soon. Millennials are the least engaged generation, but look, all employees are not engaged. So who's to blame? Pick up a mirror and turn it towards you. Managers are to blame. Leaders are to blame. Business owners are to blame. You cannot blame any of the employees if your employees are not engaged. You either hired the wrong people, you're not communicating enough, you don't have enough training or development, you don't have accountability, you don't have performance management tools, and or you have the wrong leaders on your bus. To wrap up, this is a great statement from Charles Darwin. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change. So be the one that is adaptable to change. Hoping that we met your goals today, a reminder of something that you already knew, new information, a little bit of both. If you have any questions, our email and our phone number is on the bottom, 407-367-0883, or you can just email us at info@blackrainpartners.com. The next steps that I suggest for you is to take action now. Take this information, share it with people on your team, 3 people, maybe even somebody at home. This could help you in your home life as well. Make sure that you call us for a free consultation. We'll be more than happy to help you. Connect with us on social media. Here's all our social media information. Always giving out free tips, free advice. We have a monthly newsletter as well. Time and attention are priceless. Thank you for yours today. Have a great day.